I love everything that you do, but I hate the way that you move.
YouTube, welcome back to my channel, you guys. If y'all are new here, my name is Angel Uchiha. If y'all are not new, then of course welcome back. I want to thank y'all for liking, commenting, subscribing, running those views up, all that good shit that y'all do to keep this channel alive. As y'all can see, I'm back here with Shubu.
Show is Sling the Ghetto Prince Hakeem, aka my name is Shu. Harmony Love, Tataki above, all that good stuff.
Yes, and so today we are discussing goddess worship, right? Because y'all know how I feel about the goddess. Y'all know how I feel about patriarchy, but y'all don't be wanting to take it from me because I'm a female. Y'all feel like I'm just being a feminist, right? So I wanted to invite Mr. Shula on here so that he can give his perspective of a goddess worship as a man, right?
Absolutely, yep. Absolutely.
Okay.
A lot to divulge for sure.
Lot to unpack. Okay, so I'm just gonna ask a couple questions and we're gonna get straight into the topic. I'm freestyling today. You ready?
Yeah, let's do it. Freestyle Friday or Freestyle Sunday.
Okay, so my first question for the people, because I'm gonna pretend like I don't know him, y'all. Like we gonna dive deep.
Who is you again?
Exactly. We're strangers right now. So, what religion were you raised with? Was it patriarchal, matriarchal?
I was raised, of course, like most quote unquote copper people, traditionally Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what denomination it was necessarily, but basically, yeah, just basically Christianity. So patriarchy, basically, in a sense, Jesus Christ,
Mm-hmm.
Father God, all the disciples. Yeah.
Okay. So, did you venture off into other belief systems or religions before you landed on goddess worship, or was it just straight from Christianity to goddess worship?
Um. So my growing up, I had a stepfather, my brother's father actually. He kind of got us into like Muslim. We actually went to the mosque, but I think it was the Nation of Islam at some point, which was very cool. They was very cool people. Um, but it was still more that Christianity. It was like a laid back Christianity. We went to church sometimes as I grew up. Sometimes we didn't.
Mm-hmm.
But I never really had any like major changes from Christianity that I can be conscious and aware of to say like, yeah, we was this and this what I was after Christianity before I came to goddess worship. So no, just straight from Christianity to goddess worship.
Okay. Okay. So what triggered that transition? What First of all, how old were you? Were you still minor?
So when I became a goddess worshiper, I was probably about 22, 21.
Okay, so you were an adult.
Yeah, I was definitely an adult.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But the reason why I became a goddess worshiper is because if we want to be technical, I guess we can say that I did switch to like Commission, Kemet, Egypt, Kemet, like God system, or this Commission spirituality.
Mm-hmm. Which is more like polytheism or
Yeah,
like
polytheism.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And but I wasn't really like into it. I was more so into like the knowledge of it versus like the actual practices that they would do or that some people may do who believe or who practice that. So I came from that, but then yeah, like I said, when I ran like 22, 21, 22, that's when I kind of was like, this is something that's interesting for me. As I learned about it, I started seeing people like Bro Sanchez. Um, there's a guy named Quasi Luminous. He was on YouTube, very active. Uh, and just a couple other people just talking about different things. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what triggered you to go into goddess worship. Just like you were starting off Commission, which is more so polytheism, mixture of gods and goddesses for those who don't know, and seeing people like Bro Sanchez or like different people speaking on the topic of goddess worship. That's what led you to kind of check it out for yourself.
Yes, absolutely. And just getting deeper into like the teachings of that, I kind of started just to formulate my own thing with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I kind of just took bits and pieces, and it's the history of knowing that goddess worship was, well, a lot of goddess worship practices and artifacts that they find today or have found, they predate modern religions, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, that's something that I've been digging into. I know y'all know,
yeah,
right? Because
that.
I've been lecturing y'all about goddess worship throughout Abrahamic religions and its influence there.
Mm-hmm.
But the further you go back in any region, whether you want to go North America, South America, Europe, Asia, Africa, the further you go back, the closer you get to the worship of a soul mother goddess, right?
Yeah.
And then from there, you will see it start to become polytheism, where there'll be like a male consort, and then there'll be multiple females in male gods. And then the youngest religion that we see overall is the concept that we're in now, where there's just this one male entity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think triggered that transition?
My belief is just like with anything. Let me get more specific. So, and this, once again, I don't know. I mean, we can do history and see what kind of happened, but my thing is overall, just to give a general standpoint of what I think actually happened,
Mm-hmm.
was when you worship something that is like super loving, you know, fair and just, and when you have a natural ego, you know, so far as the masculine principle, not just men, you know, women can be egotistical too.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a natural ego, there's a sense of energy that comes with it. And depending on how confident you are, depending on what you can provide, depending on what type of insight you may provide to people, you know, such as a shaman and a spirit guide or whatever, you can be put on a pedestal. So now it takes the even egalitarian playing field, saying everybody's fair, all is one, everybody's equal, or everybody has a fairness, and say, well, I provide this, and so therefore I should be exalted above others.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not just a farmer. I'm someone who can give spiritual advice to tell the farmer when to plant, even though the farmer should know better than that, than what the actual, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it started. It started with egos. So when you have something, like I said, that's fair and that's loving, that's nurturing, such as the mother, and you look around and you say, okay, well, I want more. I want more than just this. I don't want fairness. I want to be above people. I want people to either worship me or worship the things that I do, or honor me above this person or that person or this group. And that's kind of how we got here today, which basically you see that the God of the Bible, honor me above all gods, worship me above all gods or whatever. And you know, nobody comes through God but through me, and this and that. And basically it takes and idolizes a person or idolizes a entity, or, you know, divine spirit or whatever you may call it. So that's how we actually got to this point, as far as what I have researched and what I have known to be common sense. Now there's a multitude of factors if you want to get technical and say how they destroyed and how they took certain feminine principles and gave it to men. You know, we can get into that too, but far as overall and in general, that's basically how it happened.
You know, we can definitely get into that because that is crazy, right? The taking the goddess's attributes and giving them over to El, that's a whole rabbit hole within itself. But I definitely agree with you that ego is definitely one of the driving factors, especially from the digging that I did, right? How do I break this down? Like, from what I've seen, this whole like transition from goddess worship to God worship isn't a one-time thing. It has happened a couple times throughout history, and the common denominator that I noticed was war. A lot of the times where you see this quick transition from polytheism or worshiping an entire pantheon that's headed by maybe a female and a male, or just a female, and then all of a sudden it becomes monotheistic and heavy masculine phallic worship, is usually during a time of war. Even when you look at the scripture, right? The basic story of the scripture is the Israelites, and they were founded by obviously Abraham, or at least they came from his seed. And majority of the time they are at war. They're going to war with other tribes. They're conquering other tribes. They're conquering land. So there's this heavy warlike dominance, ego type of energy that's driving this this push towards Elohim in the soul male entity. In my theory, right, and y'all can just go do your own little research and however y'all feel about it, is that monotheism, patriarchal monotheism, evolved out of extreme henotheism, right? I believe that's what it's called, but it's essentially where you have an entire pantheon of gods that are acknowledged, but I'm going to pick this one god and venerate it over all the other gods, right? And so that's what happened with Elohim. He was originally one god of many, and he had a consort, Asherah, and they were the king and queen of heaven. And then the Israelites began to venerate El over all the other gods, and slowly, like you said, they started to give Asherah's qualities to El and kick her out along with the rest of the pantheon, right? And like you said, it's a very prideful energy. It's very much like, my God is the supreme God. We are the chosen people. The rest of y'all are here on this planet, but the Israelites, we are his chosen seed, and blah, blah, blah. It's very egotistical, right? So I definitely agree with that. So with that being said, how do I want to word this? I feel like there's a lot of values and principles that are associated with being a man in today's society. And I think a lot of these values are based upon the Abrahamic religions that our founding fathers subscribed to, right? So when you transitioned to goddess worship, do you feel like you had to sacrifice this idea of what it means to be a man and, you know, be the leader and the head of the household? And, you know, like, do you think that you had to revisit that and change how you looked at what it means to be a man?
Not necessarily. When you look at nature and you look at animals, you know, and I don't really like comparing humans to animals that much, but we all have similarities, and we're able to use those similarities to kind of justify some things. But when you look at animals, particularly, let's say lions and hyenas, they are matriarchy, or they are a matriarch. But the man still does basically the same thing that we say we do, which is provide, you know, build or help, you know, take down, help hunt, you know, establish borders, and to basically mate. So when you look at that nature aspect, even the video that I just did on my TikTok, where there was a bird who was basically, you know, going after a woman or going after a female bird, right? And he did a dance. He was doing a little dance to, you know, cuckoo and make it seem like, you know, she should choose him. And so she chose him. And so therefore that's when the mating process began. They started to build inside of a tree, a home. And he was helping her build everything, and she was making sure everything was right and tight for her so she can actually hatch her eggs and be protected inside of this shell of a tree. And he would bring food every day, you know what I'm saying, to make sure that she can eat and make sure that she had everything she needed. And then, you know, the eggs hatched, and then they were able to raise and help until the birds can go on their own. So, like I said, when you look at nature, because nature is the divine teacher outside of any text or any type of book, the man's role in this society basically is still the same. It's just the power has been given to the man. You see what I'm saying? So, and it's been, for the female, it's been enforced like a little bit more stipulations. You know, you can't do this, you can't wear this, you can't look like this, you can't go this, you can't talk this way, you can't, you know, all these different restrictions and stuff that added on to it. But once again, everything in its natural state is going to fall directly in line. So no, I don't feel like it had to change much, you know, but, you know, it's different in each different situation.
Right. So you think that transferring of the power, right, back to the woman doesn't usurp the man's role in render him null and void, right? Because I feel like that's something that I've seen, right, since I've been speaking on goddess worship and putting my content out there about, you know, women being the natural leaders. One of the main responses that I get from men is like, oh, only a feminine man would agree with that, or you know, oh, y'all want to be a man so bad, or you want to take the man's role, or you know, just this notion that when a man practices goddess worship, or even when a woman practices goddess worship, we're veering away from what it means to be a man and what it means to be a woman. So I think that that's an interesting take, that we can worship a feminine goddess without it meaning that women are now men,
right,
and men are not, like,
Yeah.
it's not a
And to-
reversal role.
And to your point, I mean, I would say to these people, ask them, are they Christian? Do they believe in Jesus Christ?
Mhm.
Because it say, basically, you have to be born again through Christ. Well, we know birth only comes from, at least from a human standpoint,
Mhm.
and many other, but human specifically, birth only comes through a womb. So if birth only comes from a womb, and we have a man or a masculine entity stating that you have to be born again
Mhm.
through him, then we have to, we got to take that with, like, we got to take that not lightly at all. So the thing is, when someone says, oh, you want to be a man or you want to be feminine, well, you got to question, if you worship this God and you believe in this Bible, and it says you have to be born again and wash your sins away,
Mhm.
right, through the blood and, whatever.
Mhm.
Only thing that can wash you is water. But if you want to say blood, the womb of the mother when you are giving birth,
Mhm.
then we got to ask, well, we're following someone, or for the Christians, you're following someone who wants to be, or who actually takes on a feminine role, a very feminine role. Even to carry a cross, which is basically to carry a womb, is feminine. So I would say to those people, re-question your belief and ask yourself what masculine entity gives birth, and then ask that and say, is that not a feminine quality or not? So, yeah.
I agree. I 100% agree. I think that the real
Hit this hookah.
role reversal takes place in the scripture. Even in the first chapter, Genesis, we see a woman being born out of a man's stomach. Like, when we clearly see that that's not what happens. Women carry
out of a rib.
Exactly. But where's your rib at? Right here. Right? Yeah. So it's like, in what reality does a man birth an entire woman out of his side?
There's no reality.
Exactly. So he's taken on a feminine role, just based off of nature. We can put aside, oh, well, women are supposed to wear pink and boys are supposed to wear blue. Put all of that aside. When we look at a female entity, the female entity in any species is predominantly responsible for carrying and birthing life. Right. So to worship a entity or religion that has taken the man and put him in that role, that's the true role reversal. And I personally think, right, I know this might upset some Muslims and some Christians out there. I personally think that that was something that was implemented via patriarchy, because even in the Bible, there are literally scriptures in the Bible that admit that multiple kings came and destroyed goddess worship. Yeah. Took out Asherah's offerings, took out Asherah's, the cow. Yeah. Exactly. Moses, burned everything that represented these goddesses. Yeah. And completely reformed the practice that the Israelites were doing at that time. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. The fact that they didn't let any woman speak, there's no actually woman prophet, just lets you know that it was dumb. It was purposely did that way. Mm-hmm. People, that's what people have to realize. When you think about something, you got to actually put your feelings into it. So we can say logic all we want to, but this is why we have to get back into the goddess essence and actually put the feeling into it. Because think about all the rappers. The first thing they want to do is degrade a woman, but the person that they exalt the most is mother. Ain't nobody mess with no rapper's mother. Can't nobody say nothing about nobody's mother. They don't never say father. They always say mother. Why is that? Because that's in their subconscious, that's the highest divinity, and it's spiritually that's the highest divinity to a person, their mother. So that mother energy never goes away. It's just that when patriarchy came along, especially through religion and through, genocide and destroying of information, we see that men want to dominate the spiritual sector and take on a role of a feminine entity.
I like that you pointed that out too, because I actually just seen a post earlier today. And I was gonna do a TikTok for y'all. It was basically speaking about how, what did it say exactly? It was like, men, I hope you know that y'all breaking y'all back and paying for that house just for y'all grandkids to call it grandma's house.
Exactly.
And I thought that
Big
was
Mama's house,
interesting.
yeah.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
that's that natural matrilineal energy within
Exactly.
us, where I think that's crazy, because we can talk about matriarchy, right? But that's matrilineal to
Right.
say that the house belongs to grandma, to the matriarch,
Exactly.
right? And nobody taught us that. In fact, most of us were, like you said, raised Christian. We were raised under Abrahamic religions. So why is there this gut instinct to call it grandma's house? And some men will say, "Oh well, that's because there's no fathers in the home." Even when grandpa is in the home, we still call it grandma's house.
Exactly.
Like,
it's always Big Mama house, because Big Mama's the one who feed us in all different ways, whether it's through food,
mhm.
whether it's through the breast, whether it's through the love and the nurturing. Like I said, traditionally, we see the father or the masculine principle as the principle of discipline and protection.
Mm-hmm.
Fun too as well, but just more so about discipline and protection. And when you have something that's more so nurturing, it's like you have to feel for that,
Mm-hmm.
And that's what everything in nature. That's why I said when you look at nature, the mothers are always, because they have to give the birth, they're always the ones that's closest to the children.
Mm-hmm.
And when you grow up with your mother, or if you grow up with some type of feminine entity, it's going to always be higher than that masculine entity, because you always are going to need that feminine entity to bring in life again. So we understand that. Humans understand on a subconscious level. It's etched into our DNA.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I 100% agree. So again, like, I do want to speak on the fact that a lot of people might find that a little bit hard to hear.
Yeah.
Right? Because that is what I noticed. Because I was looking through the comment section. That's what I like to do. When I see topics, I like to see, like, oh, what's everybody saying? And I did see a couple of people who were a little salty. Like, oh, if he's doing all the work and he's blah, 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 then why is it grandma's house? And and blah, blah, right?
Yeah.
Which is understandable. That's an understandable thought, right? So do you think that that transferring of the power or of the influence or the ownership to the woman that we find within matrilineal or matriarchal societies, do you feel that let me ask you, as a man, does that make you feel like overlooked, as though your hard work or your efforts and provision is overlooked?
No, because remember, we're still human, so we have personalities. We have things that people remember us for. It's not like everybody's looking at mama and the only thing that's going on in life is mama. No, it's we have our own personalities. We have our own uniqueness to us. We have our own things that we bring, as far as instilling children, or the women we're dealing with, or our mothers, our family, our siblings, whatever the case, whoever we're dealing with, we still have things that we're doing in our life. So it doesn't diminish you as a man because we exalt the mother. We exalt, the feminine qualities. There's nothing to it. You got to realize you are you, and anyone who is being themselves, and anyone who has to be themselves, which is everyone, is going to have an individuality. We can come together as a collective, but everybody has their own personality and their own things going on. So when you relate to other people and you deal with other people, then people are going to remember you for you, and they're going to know you for you, so it doesn't diminish it at all. It actually kind of makes it even more, because outside of mother, there's this guy here that I have fun with, and that, make sure that I get the things that I need and plays with me, or whatever the case may be. So.
Yeah. Fathers definitely get loved in their own way. And I think that what you're kind of hinting at is like, we don't have to get so wrapped up in the title thing. Again, that's that ego getting wrapped up in like I want the title of the head of the household. I want the title of this. And if I don't have that, I feel like you're trying to play me. Right. And that's something that I've seen just from, put my fillers out there. I literally made a status, and all I said was, women are the natural leaders and men are the helpmates.
Right.
And I got so many comments of dudes like, oh, you're bashing men. Oh, you on here talking shit about men. I'm like, I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything bad. I didn't say men are terrible. Men ain't shit. All I said were women are the natural leaders. And people instantly took that as like an ego jab, like I'm trying to play them. Right. So I think that fixation of power and title isn't something that we find within most matrilineal and matriarchal societies. We've done a lot of research together looking at different matriarchal and matrilineal tribes. In many of these matrilineal slash matriarchal tribes will even elect men into positions of leadership. Like, it's not this situation to where women are just dominating over men and men are on leashes or something like that. Like, it's very balanced and loving. It's not a power trip whatsoever.
Right. And even like men actually have fun in matriarchal societies. In some matriarchal societies, the women offer themselves up to different men. You know, and here in America, everybody be horny off of that, right? But it's about showing that we care and showing that we give respect to our visitor or to the community or whatever the case may be, by offering the most highest form of grace and gratitude, which is, you know, the woman's vagina. So yeah. And then the thing is too, we are helpmates. I mean, life is about giving birth. Let's be 100% honest. Without birth, there is nothing. There is no house. There is no idea. There is no thought. There is nothing without having to be birthed into this world, you know? So whether we believe in afterlife or before life, whatever the case you may think you believe or know, whatever, we can deal with the truth here. And the truth is that we come out of a womb. And so when we look at when a woman is pregnant for 9 months or however, the men have the most obligation to assist and aid. That's the most important time to assist and aid. And that comes from protection. So if you got to protect, that's a helpmate. It's like security. When you go to the club or you go to, you know, a show, if you're an artist, so if you got anything you got to deal with when you're dealing with people who are protecting something, those are the helpmates. Those are not the main attraction. You know, nobody comes for the security, but the security is vital and important because it helps make sure everything is regulated, structured, and make sure everything gets protected. Right? So yes, men are the helpmates. It has nothing to do with feelings. I think with those men, they deal with their feelings in a sense of they feel emotionally hurt hearing that they're a helpmate. But that's what it's about. It's not about you're lesser than. It's just about that's our role.
Exactly.
You know, and when you get out your feelings about that, you'll start to actually appreciate that you have this divine role of being in servitude and service to the womb. You know, everything we do, far as hollering at a chick, far as getting a number, far as let's say, if you want to say like having a house for a woman, or, you know, providing a home for her and her children or our children, or, you know, as far as just getting your stuff together for you, all that matters is that you have that family structure and do what you do for your woman and for your family. You know, if you want to be one of these men, I think these men out here, low key, they don't want to deal with women. You know, some men just want to be, whether they gay or they not gay or whatever the case may be, they just don't want to deal with women. They want women to be pets and not actual people.
Right.
And so when you have a pet, it's kind of easy to dominate. Get over here and, you know, or get over there, whatever the case. Come here. And you can't treat the thing that birthed you, not necessarily that woman, that's your girlfriend or whatever, but the essence of, you can't treat that that way. Otherwise, we won't be here. So we'll be extinct very soon.
Exactly. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think like one of the major issues is just connotation, right? If y'all don't know what connotation is, I'll pop the definition up there. It's basically the perceived meaning of a word beyond its literal definition, right? So there's a lot of connotation that comes with the word helpmate, that people kind of just associate with like being inferior or being less than or being somebody's like maid or, you know, assistant. You know, and a lot of that comes from Abrahamic religions, of course. But when we look at the actual definition of what it means to help, in its simplest form, it's to provide assistance and to make life easier.
Exactly.
For whoever it is, like using your resources, your power, your ability to make life easier for somebody else. And that's what I feel most men do naturally.
And that's a divine role.
It's very divine. In fact, again, on these posts, when I speak out about women being leaders, one of the main like rebuttals that I get is like, oh, well, look at all the technology that men build. Boom. What do we do with technology? We use it to make our lives easier.
Yeah.
The definition of help is using your power, resources, and abilities to make other people's lives easier.
Yeah.
So by definition, men are the natural helpmates of our society. And I think that that's absolutely beautiful. Like you said, this is how we are protected, this is how we are sustained. This is how we're able to have the space to create children and have a loving and nurturing environment because we have that protection and stability, making things easier for us.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So with that being said, what does a man's life look like in a matriarchal society in your eyes? Because I can see like a lot of people, being curious about like, what y'all trying to do goddess worship?
Yeah.
Y'all trying to like, what does that look like? What is the dynamic?
So you have basically core principles, egalitarianism. You have egalitarianism basically is the act of everything being equal. So you can't. That's another thing about it. Like people may think that goddess worship is about the woman, but because the woman is actually fair, from what I'm researching from the societies that we've seen today, so they're equal, they're fair. Obviously, it's a goddess principle there. So stating, like I said, the divine mother, the divine womb is to be exalted. And then kind of from there, it kind of gets like into power. So do the women delegate the power? Do they pick a leader? Do they pick a king? Right? In some societies, or do they just play the role, which is natural, of being in the household, controlling a house, having ownership over the land, having ownership over the property, being able to delegate positions to men, like I said before, in the household and outside of the household, and also just approving off on certain things, approving off on, let's say, if they had to go to war, if they have to fight, if they have to move, if they have to eat a certain way, and how they deal with, just things in nature. So now for a man, like I said, it's fun. As far as what I research, is fun. You get to go around, you get to protect, and you get to kind of live life. You get to take part in the rituals, the ceremonies. You get to love on your women, your children, and you just kind of have the free life. It's not like the society today. So when somebody say this society, they build technology and all this stuff, like these things, these gadgets, they're convenient because we live in a society that requires us to call somebody from across the world. Whereas when you live in a matriarchal society or a tribe, all of your family most likely are going to be in that area. And that's, like I said, you're a man of the home, and you might go out to work a job or tend to land or deal with cattle or just build different things. So even if you was to have a modern day matriarchal society that deals with cell phones, that deals with type technology, it would still be the same. It just would be, once again, that everybody would all cooperate and the principles would stay the same. We all are fair. What you give is what you get. And then also that the womb is exalted. So it's not much of a difference, except for they're kind of out of the patriarch, or I call it the Patrix. People want to call it the Matrix.
The Patriots.
Yeah. So
I love that. Okay. So with that being said, right? Two questions, but that just made me think, right? So you mentioned that there's a lot of ability of the woman to delegate certain things, like do we go to war? Who plays this role? How we're going to handle this situation, right? There are some people who will argue that due to a woman's feminine, emotional nature, she wouldn't be able to handle those type of decisions, or she would behave or make those decisions in an emotional or irrational way. Do you think there's any validity to that?
I think it is a little bit. The thing is, right, anyone, whether it's woman or man, anyone who's being attacked is not going to just shrivel over in the corner unless they're scared. Women are some of the most fierce, wanting to fight, wanting to kill because of the emotions type of people. So the option to go to war, they may think emotionally like, we need to protect our family, our children. We need to protect our husbands. We need to protect the things that we own. So therefore, emotionally, when you feel for these things and you have some type of feelings and happiness or some type of connection, right? When you have that connection with these things, naturally, you're going to want to protect those.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So that's the masculine principle of the female. So this is the masculine principle in general, to protect. And protection doesn't come from a man or a woman, it comes from both.
Mm-hmm.
So when you want to protect, it's off of logic, but the logical part is, okay, if someone's attacking us, do we defend ourselves or do we? There's two parts. You can either defend yourself or you can run. You can fight or you can live another day to fight another time. And as far as when it goes to making a decision, I think women have the rationality as well. It's not all about emotions. Like women aren't 100% emotions. Obviously, they wouldn't be working. Obviously, they wouldn't be making decisions to pay their bills. Everything can be about what they want and what they feel. Even though they are emotionally dominated for the most part, some women are overly masculine or maybe more masculine than feminine. The protection aspect, if like you said with war, it's going to go into what do we need to protect.
Mm-hmm.
So that decision is going to be made with a rational mind, not and with a rational and an emotional mind. It's kind of cohesive. They kind of joining together. They go together, you know. So I think that decision would be perfectly made by a female, regardless of what they choose to do. It's no right or wrong in the situation. You can fight or you can leave. But we've seen history shows that there's going to be a victor in war.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's going to be a truce. And most of the times when they're a victor, it was conquered because the men were either too weak or they lost the battles. It had nothing to do with any women making any decisions. So it's not like winning or losing is going to go down to the woman. It's going to go down to the fighters and go down to the strategists, basically. And even somebody like, we look at the Zulu tribe or the Zulu nation, Shaka Zulu, his advisors was his, if I'm not mistaken, his mother and his auntie. And they were some of his they were his war strategists. So they put together the plans for him, how they were able to fight out the British and the colonists in general.
Mm-hmm.
We got to remember that part. And then, there was a great queen named Amina, who was a warrior queen, and she fought. She got in the dirt. So it has nothing to do with a woman being emotional that she can't fight or make a rash decision based upon if we were to go to war or not, and what to do.
Right. And I like that you pointed out the cohesive nature of emotion and rationality when it comes to making important decisions, right? Because I do feel like we live in a society that holds the belief that in order for someone to be a leader, they have to be void of emotion, right? They have to be logic and rational and hard and whatever the case may be. But that's just simply not the case based off of the examples that you gave.
Mm-hmm.
And also, as you know, right, I've been taking leadership courses as a part of my business degree. And within those courses, they have us studying the psychology of a leader, right? And what psychologists discovered was that in most cases, leaders' physical appearance or physical abilities have nothing to do with their leadership. In fact, most leaders look or resemble a lot like their followers. Most leaders actually also play follower positions. So your manager is underneath the supervisor is underneath the director is underneath the CEO, right? So they still have to play a follower position. But what was really important about what they discovered when it comes to the mind of a leader is their ability to process emotion. So having emotional intelligence, having empathy, having concern for others, being able to communicate and connect with people on an emotional level. These are very important factors when it comes to being a leader. So not only is it possible to be a leader and make decisions when you use your emotions, but it's actually preferred to be a good leader, right? So I just think that the whole notion of, in order for you to be a leader, you have to cut out those emotions. That's not true.
Right.
It's not true historically. It's not true scientifically.
It's not true in general.
It's just not true. And I think that women being more empathetic, nurturing, could actually cause them to make better decisions when it comes to going to war, right? Because we might not think from a perspective of, let's just go out and conquer. Let's just go out and, we might think from a position of, we have babies to protect. We have, people that we love and care for. So we can't just be so quick to pull the trigger or jump into a rash situation. So I think that, it also having love and respect for other people is important. Because yes, it would benefit us to go over here and take these resources, but that would destroy that person's community.
Right.
And that's something that it takes empathy and concern for others to, you know, take a pause and say, you know what, I'm not going to sit here and pillage and rape and conquer and destroy somebody else's community for my own personal gain. Right?
Yeah, and that's why another aspect too people have to realize is, like, when we talking about the beginning of how this all started with patriarchy, like the wars were initiated by men anyway. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like women, if they had the choice, or if men didn't rebel. If we're in a matriarchal society, and there are other matriarchal societies, most likely there's not going to be any war, because the divine feminine are going to come together with the council of men and whatever, and they're going to say, okay, what can we do to, you know, make sure both of our communities eat, make sure we can trade, make sure we have a good relationship with these other communities. You know, it's only going to come about when you look at history, people trying to be greedy, people trying to conquer, which is mostly from what I've seen, ran by men or ran by some type of patriarch or some type of king, you know, in that position. So, yeah.
That's very true. That's very true. The whole concept of kingship is very heavily tied into war and conquering and expanding your borders by any means possible. And that's usually what triggers war. When we go back and research wars of antiquity all the way up to current wars, the main reason is people trying to infringe on other people's resources and goods, which is greed in most cases. So with that being said, in your journey of goddess worship, as you've, you know, dated women, been related to women, seen women within the world, have you seen anything in women that made you kind of think like, maybe I should rethink this goddess worship shit? Like, maybe men do need to be in charge. Like,
no. I mean, I think for this world we live in, for the patriarchy, obviously men need to be in charge, because it's a patriarchy. You can't have a society to where people go out to work, people go and, you know, be enslaved in the sense of to a job or to an obligation to quote unquote be a man, and all this programming that we've been dealing with. Yeah, you need men in leadership roles. But if we lived in a society to where the women were or held the power, then we wouldn't have so much stress on our table. We wouldn't have so much to conquer. It would be more so conquering the fact of how we can give back to the earth, how we can give back to our people and give back to others. And truly, there's nothing I've seen. Once again, we got to think, because we're in a patriarchy, everything that comes along with patriarchy dwindles down to the individual person. So our programming from when we're born up until we go to school and we get programmed through our peers, through the school, up into the society, which is like, you know, the government, the news, the laws and things of that nature, right? And then the culture. So everything that we've seen, I wouldn't even blame women for how they behave in a sense. Now of course you gotta take some type of accountability, but if you don't know better, you don't do any better. You don't act any better. And that goes for both men and women. But like I said, I couldn't really necessarily blame women if they were to show some non-leadership skills. I think if they're put in the right environment, you take the stress off, you allow them to be a woman, you allow them to be creative, and then also they have some type of guidance from either other women or men or both, then they can be the natural leaders that they are, you know? So the society that we live in does not allow women to be leaders, and therefore every program and every stress, every emotion, every depression, everything that comes with it that a woman may have to deal with comes from the patriarchy.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think that's an interesting conversation, is the nature versus nurture, right? Because it's so easy to look at, you know, women or men and say, oh, you know, women can't do this because that's just how women are. Men can't do this because that's just how men are. But like you said, we got to think we're in a society where we're being indoctrinated and programmed. So a lot of the things that we do aren't according to our nature. It's a direct result of the environment that we're submerged in, right? So with that being said, as you work on cultivating a matriarchal society, what are some ways that you plan on counteracting that indoctrination and programming that people may already face? So, for example, you may have men who come into your matriarchal society with that patriarchal mentality, and women who have been told that they're not leaders for so long coming into this matriarchal society and trying to step into a position of leadership,
Mm-hmm.
how would you kind of offset that programming they're coming in with?
So just for both men and women, it's about submission.
Mm-hmm.
Submission to that goddess essence, not to a woman necessarily, but to the goddess essence of creation. This is Big Mama. This is the mother. This is someone who can give life and give birth and actually carry on the lineage.
Mm-hmm.
And people say, okay, yeah, of course, this is true. We do need both men and women to create a fetus, zygote, a child, but we need only women to birth a child.
Mm-hmm.
My Dr. Umar shit, we need both to create, but we only need the woman to give birth to that child, to that human.
Mm-hmm.
So another way is by providing them with a sense of therapy,
Mm-hmm.
Helping them understand that this way is going to be more peaceful for both.
Mm-hmm.
And then also just reprogramming. My thing is, I'm not more so worried about the adults. We're more so focusing on the children.
Mm-hmm.
The children are the future. So if we focus on the children and instilling these things inside of the children,
Mm-hmm.
then a society will naturally turn out to the way that it's being programmed, which is basically through goddess worship and through honoring the womb, and honoring both parties as well. So yeah, those are the things that we would try to implement and try to get people to see. Now, let's say if there's a man that comes in with an ego and saying, man, is this, obviously this ain't for you. So you wouldn't even be trying to join anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
You would kind of separate yourself from that if you were that type of person or man or woman or whatever the case may be. But for those who see this as a fair playing field,
Mm-hmm.
seeing this as something that's going to be honoring both men and women, not just the
Mm-hmm.
woman, but those people will already kind of be open and be able to be ready to listen and be open to hearing these things out, understanding these things, and be ready to go and move forward with these things. So yeah.
Okay. So I 100% agree. So it's a matter of selection, and that's why I think homeschooling is very important. Being able to nurture and cultivate the new minds that are coming into the world,
Mm-hmm.
Rather than focusing so hard on deprogramming ourselves.
Exactly.
And then also, I do think that's why the spiritual aspect is so important. This is why I've always had a love for religion and spirituality of all forms,
Exactly.
even the Abrahamic religions, as y'all know, right? I think that they're beautiful because they serve as like an anchor and a foundation. Because as humans, we're complex, right? We get into things, we our minds get wrapped up. We get so deep into creation and building societies and coming up with beliefs and standards that we can kind of be all over the place.
Yeah.
And religion and spirituality does work as like an anchor to bring us back to, okay, these are our principles, these are our values, these are the things that we honor and venerate, right? So that's why I think the goddess essence is so important,
right?
Because it'll provide a natural structure and backbone for a matriarchal society, so that if anybody's confused, they have a reference.
Right. That's why I said those basically one of the two of the main principles, which is egalitarianism and the goddess worship essence. The mother, great mother. So
exactly. So I think that's beautiful. I do. So I think that's pretty much all the questions that I have for you today. Is there anything else that you want the people to know?
Yeah. So once again, matriarchal is not about women are the only important thing in the world and the only thing that matters, or the divine essence of the mother is the only thing that matters. It's saying that it's the most important, it's the greatest, it's the highest frequency when it comes to both species. And when you take that in mind, it's like, okay, I could to compare it would be, okay, clothing, shelter, food, things of that nature. And then next would be, okay, harmony within our minds, harmony within our spirits, within our social groups or sociability, right? So we need to be social. We need to be happy and all these things, but you can't have these things unless we have those core things, which is food, the shelter, the nurturing, the things of that nature, so we can even be in an environment because a monk can't meditate in a war.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't.
Exactly.
You can't meditate and sit there and when it's gunshots flying everywhere and bombs boom blowing up everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be in that environment. And so when you're in that environment, everything in your perspective will change. You know? So that's one thing I wanted to add to it. But far as goddess worship goes, it's inevitable to happen again. It's going to happen again.
Mm-hmm.
Women are going to take their natural place, and the people who don't, or the women who don't, they're going to either die off or they're going to be, you know, in submission to whatever other programming. Mm-hmm. And the people that do, they'll be a part of not a new age, but a reinvention of an old will.
A rebirth.
A rebirth, exactly. A rebirth. You got it, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the things that are just inevitable to happen. They have to happen. They will happen. Mm-hmm. You know, just like I believe patriarchy may happen again after that. However, it will get to a point to where we may reach a stalemate, you know, and it just may be, once again, a matriarchal society, which is egalitarian, mm-hmm. and just making sure that the divine masculine is also honored along with the divine feminine,
mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
So we come together, we work together, and that's how it's supposed to be. It's not about someone who's more important. The mind state that we're in right now is all programmed to make us slaves.
Yes, and make us at war with each other, like
exactly.
the whole tit for tat. And
exactly.
For that,
man versus woman,
mm-hmm.
race versus race, age
mm-hmm.
versus, you know, young versus old, whatever the case may be. And that's because of the patriarchy. That's because people who want things for their own self and who mm-hmm. want to use others to get those things.
Mm-hmm.
But in a matriarchal society, you'll never see that. It's all about what we can get together to make sure we benefit each other and then the next generations.
Exactly. And that's why I just want to throw this in here real quick. Even we saw that within our ancestors, they had a certain understanding of that goddess worship is about balance. Mm-hmm. That's why the goddess Ma'at, who represents mm-hmm. balance, is a goddess, right? Because that's the core essence of it, is restoring the natural order of things, right. As opposed to, you know, my personal perspective is that the reason why we have this whole dominance versus submission versus it's a product of being at war with each other.
Right.
When y'all are at peace with each other, when y'all have an understanding, there's no need for who's on top, who's superior. Yeah. It just naturally flows together.
Right. And that's why if you look at the justice symbol, the scale in the justice system, that's why one is lower than the other, because they don't deal with that harmony. They don't deal with that Ma'at presence. They deal with one is superior to the other. And so, like you said, you know, we look at everything in nature, and just to, you know, it'd be a little funny, you know, the man's testicles, sometimes one might hang lower than the other, but the uterus is something when we see in imagery or things of that nature, it always stays pretty much equal and balanced. And balanced.
The ovaries are always
symbiotic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I think that was dope. I think we really gave the people some information.
Absolutely.
I'm glad that we got you on here to give the perspective of men, because like I said, they wasn't trying to hear it from me. The women was taking it well from me. Some of the men who are already goddess worshipers, they love to hear it from me. But, you know, a lot of the men were kind of taking it like, oh, you just feminist. So
that has nothing to do with
perspective.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with and remember, feminism was created based off of the principles of men are not treating women fairly. Mm-hmm. You know, staying in a house is not a woman's nature. Now, it may be her home, it may be her main obligation in the sense of when she's at home. Everybody has a home when you come to. So that may be her main obligation, but being in the home is not a feminine thing. So when you look back at those times, women were fighting for the right to be free. Mm-hmm. Then obviously we can say, or we can speculate, that other powers got into it and made the movement about being equal to a man. Mm-hmm. And it was never all about that. It was about being treated fairly, and also being in the rightful place outside of being in a home and things of that nature. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, y'all. Well, thank y'all for tuning in. As always, I want y'all to like, comment, subscribe, run those views up. We trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, y'all. Please do that. You want to shout your socials out?
Yeah, you can follow me I'm on IG as Manumi underscore Manumi underscore shoe. You can follow me also as underscore Manumi underscore shoe on TikTok. Facebook is Mashula Nixon, MUSHULLA space NIXON. I do definitely Goddess Worship content. And we are working to build a nation along with other nations. So this is something that you'll see in your immediate future. Look out for it. Monet.
When they